Hello YouTube, it's Ian here with Hobbies of a Man, and today we are doing another manga review. Now today, we are going to be reviewing Fushigi Yugi, Fushigi Yugi, written by Yu Watanabe, or Watase, sorry, not Watanabe, Watase, and published by Viz. As you guys can see, this is a Vizbig, it's really large. It was actually a little bit uncomfortable to read. I don't know that day, well, I was really cold that day because we didn't have electricity, but I was really cold. My hands were hurting, and holding this open was quite a task. Honestly, I don't know if it was because I wasn't holding it right or what, but it's a really big book. It is quite heavy, and it has. Well, this one's old, so it doesn't really have that like really nice premium feel that most Vizbigs have when you first get it, but this definitely is a, more premium than a regular tankobon, I guess. And the demographic here is shoujo. And the genres are historical, fantasy, and romance. And this is historical for Chinese history, not the whatever is current right now, which is Western European style history. Or European history, not European style. And as far as I'm aware, this does have an adaptation, but I don't know anything about it, so yeah. Now the premise here is that Micah, this girl right here, gets transported to a fantasy world based on Chinese legend after she mistakenly opens a book and starts to read it. There's a very like ink heart kind of vibe to it. Well, in ink heart it was the other way around. Whenever someone spoke, they would like bring the characters to life, but same idea. And it turns out that she is the priestess of Suzaku, which is this like firebird essentially. It's like a phoenix, I guess. And she must gather her 7 warriors to save the kingdom to be able to go home. Basically, it's like epic fantasy essentially. And yeah. I read the first 3 volumes because that's what's contained in the Vizbig, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. I like that it wasn't like a bunch of European history, because I do like European history and I think it's very cool, but all of my education was rather Eurocentric, and it's cool when stuff talks about other types of history and other types of legends and mythology, and it's very refreshing. This is significantly older than most of what I read, so I guess at the time it was just popular to, deal with more Eastern mythology, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, let's just jump into it. The plotline here is good. It's quite enjoyable, but sometimes the way that the plot worked felt a little too ridiculous for my taste. Like, it wasn't boring or it wasn't like dumb, but like I felt that it wasn't serious enough, and it was weird because the setup is serious, and the mangaka and all of her author notes, which she has a bunch of in this book, are all come off pretty serious. So it was weird that there was this really like basic, dumb, like slapstick, almost comedy element there that I didn't really think landed with me. But overall, I mean, the actual story of it was pretty interesting. It was like basically an isekai story, with the introduction, the realization that she's important to these people because of a myth, or like it's not like a myth, it's like a prophecy, I guess. And then she's traveling around to like try to find all of these warriors, and then she gets sent back to her regular world, and then basically her friend trades places with her. She has to go back to find her friend, but now her friend is evil because plot, I guess. I mean, there's actually a character reason for it, but I don't really want to spoil it because it was actually pretty good in terms of like how it happened. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy that there's no major battles. It's not like a big like, Shinobi War in Naruto, or like this like the stuff that's going on in Black Clover or anything like that. This is very much people-centered. It's about an individual facing off against another individual based on the fact that they have different ideologies, or based on the fact that one of them cares about this one character while the other one does too. and they're trying to see, you know, are they the right person for them? It's very romance based, and I thought that was interesting. I really enjoyed it. Overall, the story was really fun to read. But for me personally, I think there was a little bit of an issue just with the fact that, like, I wasn't sure that the premise of it, like, was strong enough to hold it together for as long as it did, which is a really odd thing to say because, like, I think this has, like, 20-something volumes. I'm not actually sure. I don't know how many Vizbigs there are, but it's more than 10 volumes as far as I'm aware. And the premise, you know, gathering the 7 warriors is fine, but by the end of the first volume, she already has 3 of them. So are they really going to take that long to find another 4 people? And, you know, there was a bit of a contrivance there. Like, they just happened to be that 3 people were where they needed to be at the same time. So, like, I think it was okay. And the action and everything was well balanced. Even if I didn't like the comedy, because I still noticed that it was comedy and, you know, a lot of people would like it. I think the plot structure in terms of, like, when people show up and when things happen was a little wonky, but I can't really, like, explain what it was because I don't exactly know. I just know that I didn't like how it was organized. And that's such a weird thing to say because I usually do know exactly what the hell, like, was not interesting to me. But here, I can't really tell you, and that's such a weird thing to say, but I just didn't like the structuring of the plot line. There was something about it that felt like too contrived at some points and not contrived enough at others. Like, certain things I felt stretched too long, whereas others were too short, I guess. I think that's the best way to describe it. But, you know, overall, it was enjoyable. Now, characters-wise, not bad. Miyaka and Yui are the best friend female characters from Japan. They're the main characters, basically. Or Miyaka is the main character, and then 3 of her warriors, and then Yui, and then this other character that shows up later. And yeah, Miyaka and Yui are just normal girls. They're very normal. They're very, like, well, they're not really very interesting. It's kind of a thing that I've noticed with at least Sailor Moon in this one, is that the main character is not redeeming in any way. They're just cute. It's a very odd thing. Like I mentioned it in Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon, or Usagi, has nothing about her that makes her, like, redeeming at all. She's not even, like, she's barely average. The only thing that she has going for her is that she's cute. I think, in a sense, Miyaka is actually a better main character because she at least has some elements of redeeming qualities. Like, she wants to make her family happy, and so in order to make her family happy, she puts her mom's dream of her going to a specific school ahead of her own dream. And that was actually a really interesting plot point, but that's the whole kind of, like, should you be selfless or selfish, and what defines a good person, and how much levels of selfishness and selflessness are necessary. So I thought that was interesting, but she ultimately chose to be selfish and do her own thing, but then felt bad about it. And I like that. So I guess there is some character growth here. And by definition, given that she does have a character growth, even if it's not something I particularly liked, she is an okay character at least. But yeah, she didn't, like, at the beginning, she didn't really have any redeeming qualities besides being cute. I don't know. I think just maybe shonen manga is better at, like, making the main character easy to relate with, but I'm not exactly sure if that's true. Yeah, so the other main characters were Hotohori, which is the prince, and he's, like, hot / the pretty dude, which is actually something that comes up way too often. He's, like, just a really attractive, kind of, like, effeminate ruler, which is, I think, it's just a thing that is common. Like, a lot of royalty is depicted as, like, attractive but almost feminine, which is cool, I guess. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it personally. And then Tamahome, I think that's how you say his name, who's, like, the thief / bad boy, and he's also kind of the comedy relief between him and Miyaka. Like, they just have way too many misunderstandings. And I quite enjoyed him as a character. I thought he was cool. He was a very, like, martial artist type of character. I thought that was interesting. And he also has a little bit, like, basically the most development out of all the characters here. And he wasn't, like, that weird. Like, there was nothing about him that was like, oh, I don't like that. So I liked him. And the other character is Noriko, which I guess it's a spoiler, so, like, don't listen to this part, I guess. But he's a cross-dresser, and I guess he's gay, because he's, like, in love with the prince and with Tamahome, I guess. It's very unclear. I mean, I think he's definitely a cross-dresser, and he's a guy. That's very clearly stated. But I'm not really sure if he's, like, gay, just likes that the prince is really attractive looking, or what. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He can be whatever he wants, I guess. But, like, I just didn't find it clear, and I don't really like that. I think it's best that characters are clearly defined or clearly in the process of being defined, and I didn't feel like that was the case with Noriko. I feel like there was like, okay, here, we're going to put a crossdresser, but we're not going to like actually explain anything about him so that people can assume whatever they want out of it. And I don't like that. I think that's very like lazy. But yeah, that's it for the characters. There's a few others, but they're not really all that relevant, so I'm just not going to talk about them. World building wise, interesting, based on stuff I haven't really seen much of. I do know the stuff about the 4 cardinal directions and like how each of them has an animal, and like the whole relationship between tigers and dragons, which for some reason was like only a tiger is strong enough to beat a dragon or something in some mythology in the East. But I'm not exactly sure. Well, I think it is Chinese, but I'm not exactly sure what the legends are. But I do know that, you know, tigers and dragons are usually depicted as like 2 sides of the same coin, basically. And the other 2 animals are like the phoenix and the black turtle, I think, which is cool. That was very interesting. It's very nice to have that instead of the usual 12 zodiac signs or, you know, basic Greek style stuff. I thought this was really fun in that sense. There's also like chi and martial arts type of stuff. So like progression fantasy sort of. Well, I guess it's just martial arts. I thought that was cool too, but it wasn't really used all that well. I mean, Tamahome is really the only martial artist. Everyone else is just kind of like a fighter in general with no specific style. But it was cool. It was very interesting. It kind of reminded me of Dragon Ball in that whole kind of like mythological aspect that they have going on. I thought it was cool. But there was nothing here that really like amazed me. It was just like interesting. Art-wise, it's solid. It leans towards realistic, I guess. It's not really realistic. It's very like clearly not people. Like it's kind of drawn, obviously, and it looks like it's drawn. But it doesn't look all that cartoony, but it doesn't look very stylistic or like very aesthetic in a specific way like most shonen manga do. Like, does that make sense? Like, it doesn't look like it's a particular style, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, if you look at a lot of shonen, they all have very different style person to person. Like, what I'm saying is, you can always tell when a character is drawn by Masashi Kishimoto. You can always tell when a character is drawn by Yuki Tabata. I can't really, like, I know this is Yu Watase, but I couldn't really tell you that if you just showed me a random picture of someone she drew. Maybe that's due to familiarity, but I think it is just because her style is less, like, pronounced. And I think she actually talks about this. When she wrote this, she was, like, 20 or something like that, which, you know, as a 21-year-old makes me feel like I'm losing my time, or, like, I'm wasting my time, but I think she's only around 20, and she talks about developing her art style a lot. So I guess it is in a sense that she doesn't have a very clear art style yet, like that's purely her own. And so her art comes off very like neutral and realistic by that, because of that. But I thought it was good. I liked it. It was interesting. Now, fan service wise, there's definitely fan service for both genders here. Although I think a lot of the stuff that's fan service for boys isn't really fan service, or it wasn't intended as such. It's just kind of like a process of like her changing and stuff like that. But it definitely comes off like more attractive than it probably should if she was just changing. So I don't know if it was like intentionally like that, I guess. But like there's a lot of that whole like pretty boy stuff and like the sparkles and like the man being romantic and brooding and stuff. A lot of that is the same or equivalent to the shonen fan service type of stuff with the big boobs and stuff that we get. But we also did have like stuff that would appeal to male audiences. And maybe that's because this mangaka read a lot of boys manga when she was growing up. I'm not really sure. She does mention this in her author notes as well. So yeah, but overall the rating here is a 4 out of 5. I thought it was interesting. It was very clean. I really did enjoy it. It was just a few problems here and there, and there wasn't anything here that really stood out to me, that really amazed me in any particular way. But since I wasn't bored or I didn't find any issues, it's like deserving of a high enough score. So yeah, there we go. That's it, I guess. Do I recommend it? Yes, I definitely recommend it. I think it's an interesting story. It's old, so it's kind of like classic. And, you know, I thought it was really cool. Yeah, I don't really have that much to say about this manga, honestly. Well, in comparison to a lot of other ones, mostly because there's nothing particularly bad or particularly amazing about it. It's just like a good manga. Similar titles, though, besides something like Sailor Moon, maybe Nirvana, it kind of has that same kind of like style about it being about this girl that's important to this other world that she had no clue about until she managed to go there. And that whole idea of like a different style of mythology that isn't Greek or Roman or, you know, in some way Western. So in that sense, I guess Nirvana is pretty similar, but I'm not exactly sure that it really fits because Nirvana is kind of like a magical girl thing. This isn't really about a magical girl. Like Miyaka doesn't really have any special powers as far as we're aware. She's just kind of like the priestess of this Phoenix character. So yeah, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. This is the last shoujo I read this month, and I think the last manga I read this month as well. So the next video on Friday is going to be a book review of a haremlit novel written by a female author, which is very interesting because haremlit is usually just written by guys, mostly for guys, since haremlit is touted as male romance. And it's called Bloom and Dark, and I'm going to review it on Friday. And so far, I've really enjoyed it. I'm like 93% through it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reviewing it and to show you guys the videos. So yeah, you know, stay, subscribe and stuff so you guys can see that video. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.